What happens when a champion walks away and leaves the throne behind? On a quiet day in April 2026, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara delivered a message that sent shockwaves through the figure skating world. In a simple but powerful statement, they announced their decision to retire at the end of the season. Just a single paragraph, but it sparked a massive question across Japan. Who will become the next RikuRyu? Or, more importantly, can anyone truly replace them? To answer that, we have to face a reality that's been quietly ignored for years. When Riku and Ryuichi won Olympic gold, the entire nation erupted with pride. Fans cried, celebrated, and believed they were witnessing the rise of a new era in Japanese pair skating. But once the emotion settles, a harder truth begins to surface. That victory wasn't built by a strong national system. It was built by two individuals who fought their way through it. They trained overseas, created their own environment, and pushed forward without the kind of structure other countries take for granted. Their success wasn't the result of a system working perfectly. It was the result of overcoming a system that wasn't there. And today, that system still hasn't changed. So now we have to ask the uncomfortable questions. Is Japanese pair skating really ready for life after RikuRyu? Is the next generation truly prepared? And if not, who's responsible? Ignoring these questions would mean letting the flame they ignited slowly fade away. Let's look at the current reality. With Riku and Ryuichi stepping away, the spotlight naturally shifts to the next leading pair, Yuna Nagaoka and Sumitada Moriguchi. They made history by competing alongside RikuRyu on the Olympic stage, marking the first time Japan sent two pair teams to the Games. That alone is a huge step forward. Officials have expressed confidence, saying this pair has shown real potential heading into the next Olympic cycle. But let's be honest, there's still a noticeable gap. The scores, the consistency, the experience at the highest level, they're not quite there yet. That's not criticism, it's reality. In fact, their rapid improvement in such a short time is impressive. But reaching the very top of the world requires overcoming multiple layers of challenges, and those challenges don't disappear overnight. What makes this transition even more meaningful is what happened behind the scenes. According to reports, Riku personally shared advice on training and daily routines, while Ryuichi gave detailed guidance on physical conditioning and nutrition. This wasn't just a passing of the torch, it was a deliberate effort to pass on knowledge. That's what true champions do. They don't just win, they build the future. But they're not alone. Another emerging pair is beginning to draw attention. Kana Muramoto and Lucas Honda. Both transitioned from singles skating, and in just their first season together, they already reached the podium at national championships. That's significant. For years, Japan has struggled with a shortage of male pair skaters, but now we're starting to see a subtle shift. More singles skaters are making the move into pairs, and that could signal the beginning of a quiet revolution sparked by RikuRyu's success. Even in ice dance, Japan is steadily growing stronger. Teams like Utana Yoshida and Masaya Morita have represented the country on the Olympic stage, proving that progress is happening across all partner disciplines. So, yes, Japan has climbed to a higher level compared to the past. But here's the critical question. Is this growth real and sustainable? Or is it just a temporary surge created by one extraordinary pair? Because the truth is, the same structural problems still exist. A lack of male skaters, limited training facilities, almost no domestic coaches specializing in pairs. These aren't small issues, they are foundational gaps. And winning a gold medal doesn't magically fix them. Becoming a qualified coach can take 5 years. Proper training equipment, like harness systems, is still extremely rare in Japan. And there's no fully developed system to support athletes transitioning from singles to pairs. There's a huge difference between showing potential and creating world champions. That gap hasn't been closed yet. Now compare this to the rest of the world. In Oakville, where RikuRyu trained, elite pair coaches are always present. Advanced equipment is standard, and skaters from around the world gather to train together. Countries like China run national-level development programs, identifying and nurturing young talent from an early stage. Even South Korea has begun investing heavily in pair skating. So, what's Japan missing? It's not talent. The talent is there. What's missing is the system that turns talent into champions. Riku and Ryuichi filled that gap with their own strength, but they were the exception, not the rule. And relying on exceptions is not a long-term strategy. So now the question becomes unavoidable. What happens next? When Ryuichi Kihara first decided to pursue pair skating, there were no coaches in Japan who could guide him. That reality forced him to leave the country and build his career overseas. And now, looking back on that journey, He made one thing clear: he wants to change that path for the next generation. He wants young skaters in Japan to be able to take their very first step into pair skating without having to leave home. This isn't just an inspiring statement. It's a direct call to action. It highlights the single most urgent and concrete issue Japan must solve if it wants to produce future champions. And that's where the idea of a RikuRyu Academy comes in. If that vision becomes reality, it could reshape the entire history of Japanese pair skating. It might even become more meaningful than their gold medal. Because a gold medal is a single moment in time, but an academy can produce athletes for decades. But here's the problem. While that future is being imagined, the present is still unfolding. Over the next 4 to 5 years, the next generation, led by skaters like Yuna, Nagaoka, and Sumitada Moriguchi, are fighting right now, in real time, without that system fully in place. So the question becomes urgent. What can be done today to support them? Because this responsibility doesn't fall on one group alone. It belongs to the federation, to sponsors, and to society as a whole. There was a time when Japanese pair skating was a place where talent disappeared. Skaters had potential, but without the right environment, they couldn't survive. Their careers faded before they ever had a chance to fully begin. But that's no longer the case. Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara didn't just win, they showed exactly where the destination is. They became the lighthouse. And now, new ships are moving toward that light. Yuna Mori is already on that path. Another rising team, Kana Muramoto and Lucas Honda, is preparing to set sail as well. But there's still a major issue. The route to that lighthouse is not fully built yet. And that's what makes this moment so important. What happens next in this story will depend entirely on what Japan chooses to do after RikuRyu's retirement. Will this moment of emotion simply fade away? Or will it be transformed into real investment for the next generation? Because emotion alone changes nothing. Action does. Now let's take a closer look at Yuna Mori, the pair of Yuna Nagaoka and Sumitada Moriguchi, because their story deserves more attention. The fact that they stood on the Olympic stage is something that would have been almost unimaginable in the past. For those who remember the earlier days of Japanese pair skating, even sending one team to the Olympics was uncertain. Now there are 2. That number may seem small, but it represents a quiet revolution. RikuRyu didn't just dominate, they opened a path. And now, Yuna Mori stands on that very path, taking the next step forward. That alone deserves recognition. But what makes this transition even more powerful is what happened behind the scenes. Riku and Ryuichi didn't just pass on techniques, they shared real, practical knowledge about physical conditioning, nutrition, and daily training habits. According to reports, Ryuichi personally gave detailed advice to Moriguchi about diet and training routines. This kind of direct knowledge transfer from champions to the next generation is incredibly rare, and it matters more than people realize. Because when athletes who have reached the very top choose to openly share everything they've learned, they're not just helping individuals, they're building a culture. And that hasn't always been the norm. In many cases, reaching the top meant guarding your methods, keeping your path private. But this time, something is different. This time, the champions are leaving behind a map, and that map might be the most valuable legacy of all. The greatest champions don't just win, they leave something behind for those who come next. And that, more than anything, defines the true greatness of Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara. Because their legacy isn't just medals, it's a foundation. Now, let's take a deeper look at another rising team, Kana Muramoto and Lucas Honda, a pair whose journey mirrors RikuRyu's story in a surprising way. Both athletes came from singles skating, carrying years of experience into a completely different discipline. And when they first announced their partnership, even the media was caught off guard. No one expected what came next. In just their first season together, they captured a silver medal at the national championships. That result didn't just highlight their potential, it proved something much bigger. It showed that the technical foundation built in singles skating can become a powerful weapon in pairs. And right there, we begin to see one of the most realistic solutions for Japan's future. If more high-level singles skaters, especially men, transition into pairs, the entire landscape could change. Japan already has world-class talent in men's singles. The skill, the precision, the technical base, it's all there. The real challenge isn't talent, it's direction. It's creating a system that guides that talent into pair skating and supports it properly. And the success of Lucas Honda is proof that this idea isn't just theory, it's already becoming reality. At the same time, Japan is also making steady progress in ice dance. Teams like Utana, Yoshida, and Masaya Morita have stepped onto the Olympic stage, showing the world that Japan's presence in partner disciplines is growing stronger. When you look at the bigger picture, It's clear Japan has reached a new level, and this time, it doesn't feel like a temporary surge driven by one extraordinary pair. It feels like the early stages of something more stable, something that could last. But we still have to ask the hard question. Is this growth truly structural, or is it still riding the momentum created by one historic team? Because the same core problems haven't disappeared. The shortage of male skaters, the lack of proper training environments, the absence of specialized coaches within Japan. These issues don't vanish just because a gold medal was won. And once the excitement fades, reality starts to look very different. Turning potential into world titles requires more than inspiration. It requires infrastructure. It requires investment. It requires time. Building qualified coaches takes years. Creating safe training environments with proper equipment is expensive and slow. And developing a system that actively supports the transition from singles to pairs is something Japan still hasn't fully achieved. Ignoring this reality would mean closing the very door that RikuRyu fought so hard to open. Officials have said the next generation has shown potential. But potential and results are separated by a massive gap, and closing that gap requires more than words. It requires action, real funding, real systems, real environments. The attention and financial momentum created by RikuRyu's gold medal must now be channeled into building a sustainable development structure. It won't be glamorous, it won't happen overnight, and it won't always be visible, but it is the only path forward. Because the future of Japanese pair skating will not be decided by one more emotional moment, it will be decided by what happens after the emotion fades. Once, Japan was a place where talented pair skaters disappeared due to a lack of opportunity, but that's no longer the case. RikuRyu became the lighthouse, and now, new ships are moving toward that light. Unimori continues to push forward. The rising pair of Kana and Lucas is preparing to break through. The direction is clear, but the path is still incomplete. And building that path is not the responsibility of just one team. It belongs to everyone, the federation, the sponsors, and even the fans watching this story unfold. Because what happens next will define everything. Take Yuna Nagaoka and Sumitada Moriguchi. Often overshadowed by RikuRyu, they are still Olympic athletes who stood on the same stage. For those who remember the past, that alone is extraordinary. There was a time when even sending one pair to the Olympics was uncertain. Now there are two. That change may seem small, but it represents a quiet revolution. And behind that progress lies something even more important, the transfer of knowledge. RikuRyu didn't just pass down techniques. They shared detailed insights into conditioning, nutrition, and daily preparation. They gave the next generation something far more valuable than medals. They gave them a blueprint. And that kind of openness hasn't always been part of Japanese sports culture. But now, it is. And that shift is already strengthening the foundation of the sport. Still, one critical issue remains coaching. Even today, many Japanese pairs cannot complete all their training domestically. There are still very few coaches in Japan capable of teaching high-level pair elements. This was one of the main reasons RikuRyu spent 7 years training abroad, and that hasn't fundamentally changed. Ryuichi Kihara himself admitted it when he first started pairs. There were no coaches in Japan. Even now, the situation is not drastically different. So imagine this. If Japan had just 5 more specialized pair coaches, how many young athletes could begin their journey without leaving the country? If 10 more rinks were equipped with proper harness systems, how many male singles skaters might consider switching to pairs? The talent is already there. What's missing is the environment. And if that environment changes, the chances of discovering the next RikuRyu increase dramatically. This is where the vision of a dedicated academy becomes so important, because it represents a shift from relying on individual miracles to building a system that consistently produces champions. Plans are already being discussed to create a third academy in the future. And this isn't just a business move. It's the first real step toward transforming Japanese pair skating into something sustainable, something repeatable, something built to last. And if that transformation succeeds, then the story of RikuRyu won't end here. It will just be the beginning. The moment a RikuRyu Academy becomes reality, and the skaters trained there begin to win on the international stage, that's when Japanese pair skating will truly turn the page and enter a brand new era. Because showing potential and turning that potential into results are two completely different things. There's still a gap between the two, and that gap won't be closed by emotion alone. It will be closed by investment, real funding, real systems, real training environments. The attention and momentum created by the gold medal of Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara must now be directed into building something lasting, a development system that produces champions again and again. It won't be flashy, it won't be quick, but it is the only way forward, and the world is watching closely. International media have already begun to weigh in. CBC noted that Japan's pair skating revolution is only just beginning, and the real question is whether the system can sustain what two extraordinary individuals started. Meanwhile, ESPN described the gold medal as a seed, emphasizing that seeds need soil, water, and time to grow. In other words, the hardest part is still ahead. Even rival nations see it clearly. Analysts in South Korea have pointed out that while rising teams like Yuna, Nagaoka, and Sumitada Moriguchi are improving, they still need time to reach the very top, and during that time, countries like China and Korea itself will continue to push forward. That's the reality of global competition. There's no time to stand still, because in sports, standing still is the same as falling behind. Chinese media have gone even further, calling this a historic turning point. They've warned that if the academy system becomes a reality, Japan could become one of their biggest rivals within the next decade. And when your rivals start paying attention like that, it means your potential is real. European outlets like L'Équipe and La Gazzetta dello Sport have described this moment as the beginning of a new era and even compared it to a relay, with the baton being passed from RikuRyu to the next generation. It's a powerful image, because that's exactly what's happening. This is no longer just about one pair. It's about a system being built step by step. And yet, one truth remains. Winning a gold medal is difficult, but building a system that can keep winning for decades is even harder. That's the challenge Japan faces right now. And online, fans are already feeling it. Messages of support for Yunamori. Excitement about the rapid rise of new pairs. Frustration over the slow coaching system. Hope that more male skaters will transition into pairs if the right support exists. And, above all, gratitude. Gratitude toward RikuRyu for proving that Japan belongs on the world stage. Each of these voices reflects something important. Japan isn't losing interest after their retirement. If anything, the passion is growing stronger. And that passion might be the most important foundation of all. Because at its core, this story isn't just about sports. It's about legacy. There's a saying in Japan, those who chop the wood don't get to enjoy the warmth of the fire. They do the work so someone else, someday, can feel its heat. That's exactly what RikuRyu are doing now. They're building what didn't exist when they started. They're creating opportunities they never had. And the ones who will benefit most are children who haven't even stepped onto the ice yet. That's the true beauty of what they're leaving behind. A gift for the future. Right now, Yuna Nagaoka and Sumitada Moriguchi stand on the path RikuRyu opened. New pairs are just beginning their journey. And somewhere at this very moment, a young skater is stepping onto the ice for the first time, not knowing that one day they might stand on the world stage. If that happens, if a future champion rises from the system RikuRyu helped create, that will be the true climax of their story. Because the gold medal was only the beginning. The real story starts now. So what do you think? What happens next for Japanese pair skating after RikuRyu? What are your expectations for the next generation? And what do you hope the academy will become? Let me know in the comments. Because turning emotion into action, turning support into demand for change, that's how we make sure the flame they lit never goes out. And if this story stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe and hit like. Because the story of RikuRyu may have reached its final chapter, but the future they started, it's still being written.